Hello and welcome to another WeAreDevelopers Live. We're here live again from Berlin and from London, or from Bristol actually, not London. And yeah, it seems like we're up for some travel in the near future, aren't we?
Yeah, I was just thinking it's really kicking off now. You know, we've got the World Congress Europe coming up, but also lots of travel to the States, etc. So yeah, it's going to be good though. Yeah.
So from the 4th of the 9th of May, we're going to be in the Silicon Valley, which I haven't been in decades. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything changed. And we're going to be at AgentCon. So if you actually want to come around, and we're going to do live recordings with people there, with Coffee with Developers. We're going to interview some of the speakers. And of course, we're going to talk to people about the WeAreDevelopers World Congress that's coming up in San Jose in September in the States. So yeah, and we come back, and then one day later we're going to be at AgentCon Berlin, where we're going to do the same thing there, but that's going to be easier because it's close to my house. But yeah, it's just May is seems to be the chock-a-block at conferences at the moment again. So it'll be interesting to see, and it's going to be your first time in the Valley, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, I mean, we did a few last year, you know, in Europe. So we're going back to CodeCrafts as well. That was the only thing that we sort of didn't mention there, CodeCrafts in Vienna. But yeah, it is. It's my first time actually over in San Francisco and in the Valley. I've never been. I went as a kid, but it's a very long time ago. So yeah, I'm excited for a lot of things, but I think I'm probably going to be surprised by the tipping culture and things like this, you know, things that I'm not expecting to kind of catch me out and make me feel very European when I go there, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I lived there for a while, and I know all the places, but it's all changed. Like, I was already looking like all the haunts that we used to go to, and I'm like, all of them are bankrupt or gone. So I'm like, okay, so this is a great restaurant that doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know. Anyways, we got a lot of stuff prepared for you today again, and we also got a guest for us. And the guest is a person from the UK who's actually, if you go from 0 to 2 times pi, and you go to cosine in the x direction, and you go to sine in the y direction, then you get his family name. So without further ado, welcome Keith Cirkel.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Is that how you would plot a circle, or do you have a better way of doing it?
No, circle like the shape is exactly right. Some people get confused because it's a strange spelling, but yeah, there's a whole history behind that, which maybe I can delve into one day. But but yeah.
Yeah, this is not Who Do You Think You Are, like that. I always liked that show when you got celebrities that were like super proud of being like very English, and then it turns out they were like 90% African or something. That was always good to see as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So Keith, what do you do at Mozilla?
What do I do? Yeah, a bit of everything, I guess. But mostly, I'm on the DOM core team. So that means I spend most of my days writing C++ to build HTML and CSS features. So I tend not to write a lot of HTML and CSS these days, which is unfortunate because that's what I grew up doing and what I love doing. But instead, I'm writing the things that allow us to write HTML and CSS instead, which is also just as fun.
It's quite amazing to see how involved that became. Like, I mean, CSS back in the days, like, okay, get the font rendering right, get these things right, and now we got all these different layout engines within CSS. And then, of course, like you do, like I remember it took us ages to come up with to support CSS grids. And then the first people like, and now I want to animate the grid. And I'm like, no, don't. Why do you want to punish the browser the whole time? But it's quite incredible how complex it became. Like before that, we had systems like GTK or windowing systems, but now we have to do all of that in CSS in the browser, and it's seeing how it's actually used in apps as well, and in Eclipse, whatever the name is. Right now, in almost every app is now based on a browser window, so to say. So we have to actually make these things perform much more than they did before.
Yeah, and also, so Flexbox, the kind of Flexbox technology, the Flexbox kind of spec, I guess, has proliferated into more spaces, right? I think one of Facebook's native app engines uses Flexbox style layout and kind of cribs like large parts of the spec. And there's a game engine using it, Bevy, which is like a Rust game engine, and all of their UI leans heavily on CSS and has like a whole Flexbox. I think it uses the same Flexbox engine that Servo does, because they're both written in Rust. Yeah, so CSS is not just in the browsers, it's also kind of made its way, in essence, and some of the concepts have been taken and lifted into other paradigms, which is really interesting. Maybe one day will be CSS.
I remember Hakim Lee, like the inventor of CSS, coming up, giving talks about print CSS, how to lay out books with CSS, and that was like a $20,000 license for some extra server to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna fly. I think there's gonna be other engines like LaTeX and these kind of things to do print layouts. I remember once when I did visitbritain.com, which was the tourism portal of England, we actually had like open source or like open standards mandate, like to use that. So they asked me to create PDFs using XSLTFO. Like, and that was a spec that was just in movement still. And for 3 months, I tried to render something, and then I used LaTeX because, like, no, it didn't go anywhere. And I think it's defunct by now. I think even the W3C had given up on it. So, like, it's interesting that these things move so far and wide, and it's just interesting to see as well that by the time we have them, Daniel, you said that fashion might have changed. Like, we now finally have like a masonry layout on the web, and it's still in flux of like which browser supports it and what's named and whatever. And by that time, probably nobody wants Mason layout anymore. I remember back in the days, like Molly Holzschlag was like, it took us 2 years to actually come up with rounded corners on buttons across browsers. And now nobody, and then was when everything became brutalist designs again.
Yeah.
So
it's funny as that as well. I was just thinking then that like the way that masonry is actually a really good example, because I think about the Metro design that Microsoft Windows had. That was, I think, the big time where I felt like, this is kind of a departure from the very like table with even things like row spanning and col spanning. Like, it wasn't done that much to kind of get these grid layouts. And I felt like, oh, this is a new era now. Everything's going to have this grid, almost sci-fi looking as well, isn't it? The idea of you swiping away and picking big box, and it felt very sort of something that was going to be the new way that UIs all went. And then, like you say, Chris, not really much progress beyond CSS grid in actually being able to achieve that. And then the masonry spec is always like talked about, and yeah, there's these long articles about it, but it never really seems to go anywhere. That's how it feels.
I think we're close though. I think it's going to be shipping quite soon in some browsers, if not already. I think there's some prototype work in both Chrome and Safari, but different implementations. But yeah, I think like there's something to that with the border radius and things like that. When these things become easy, designs pivot because they need to do stuff that's hard, because that's what is attractive, I guess. That's what differentiates them, right? If everyone's doing border radiuses, you have to not to differentiate yourself. And if everyone gets masonry layouts and it's really easy to do masonry layouts, and you have to do something totally different. And so there's always this kind of cat and mouse, I guess.
Yeah. It's pretty odd that it's same. It's given to the same kind of fashion as clothing and these kind of things. It's like every 20 years it comes back. It seems like. I mean, the brutalist web design was like what things looked like in the 1980s on computers because they couldn't do anything else. And then we went back to that. And I mean, I remember when people talked about the glitch aesthetic of videos, and you're like, yeah, that's how shit video was back then. Like, you know, like at scan lines on VHS and these kind of things. Like, yeah, interesting. Okay, let's take a look at some of the bits that we collected for this week. We have a lot of stuff. Maybe we're not going to go through everything. One of the biggest things that came out was, of course, Anthropic coming out with the new their new model that was kind of focused on security and like all kind of exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. And it's called Mythos, and it's only a few people had earlier access to it. In England, it was just a few government departments and these kind of things. And it's riling up the security community quite heavily, because it actually is interesting how many things it finds in security. And what was interesting that they say like it escaped its sandbox and emailed the researchers, so the company won't release it. Which is like, if it did that, then it can release itself, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see how many headlines that made, and it's going to be fascinating to see how far that goes, because I like the idea of having a model that's focused kind of on security rather than just working against security. But yeah, it's people talked about it as a warning sign as well, how Anthropic is actually not replacing, showing all of it yet. And it's an interesting idea to bring that out rather than like have another model that's just better at self-reasoning and these kind of things. So hopefully there will be some interesting parts on that. But it feels that like, oh, we didn't release it because it's too powerful. I found that a bit headliney and a bit too marketingy. I don't know about you.
Marketing, isn't it? It's I feel like this is we often see this in headlines about AI where every headline is like concerned about how powerful it is, which feels like a great way to advertise your product. It's scary how good it is. That's the headline that's the thought that they want you to take away from all of this. Yeah,
I remember back in the days there was this meta thing where they had like two bots talking to each other, coming up with an own language that humans can't understand. And like, yeah, okay, just pull the other one. It's got bells on it, like, you know.
Yeah, do you want it to be that way? It just reminded me of that thing of when somebody says, you know, I've been training karate, and then you say, well, can you show me some? And they're like, I can't. I've been told that, you know, they're lethal weapons and I need a license. It's like, yeah, you're just trying to make yourself sound good, you know.
Yes,
really that way.
That's it. Yeah. That is absolutely it. That's amazing.
It's worse when you're on a level like me, like when you worked at Microsoft and you have like director level and people are like, oh, I want to talk to you about our startup. And actually, if you can help us. And I'm like, sure, whatever. Like, what do you do? Well, I can't talk about it. We're actually in stealth mode. And I'm like, well, then don't talk about it. Like, what do you like? I'm not going to sign an NDA to tell you how to write an email. Like, this is making no sense. But yeah, it's fascinating to see that. The other thing that people looked into was Google's AI overviews, and it turned out that like 10% of them are complete nonsense, which of course is when you look at the size of Google and that every search result is an AI overview right now. That's a lot of lies going out to people out there, and I think that's a worrying movement to a degree. What do you use for search, Keith? Because I'm kind of like running out of options here.
Yeah, I use DuckDuckGo most of the time. I've been interested in, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Kagi or Kaji or something? There's some kind of paid search thing. That seems interesting, but yeah, I feel like search is really. I feel bad for people coming to the internet today, because I think there was a time where search really was almost like a second brain, and now I don't think that even you know, the quality of results has gone down a bit. I feel I don't find it quite as productive as it used to be, so I find myself searching less, and yeah, trying different tools to get that productivity back. I miss those days. I guess maybe the 2010s or something was the heyday for internet search, where you could find anything and everything.
Yeah, and
but
a lot of things are dead. A lot of searches can't be found anymore. And what's more frustrating, I use Bing still a lot because I worked on Edge and it's built in, and I worked with the Bing team before as well. And I search for a product, like I have a company saying like, hey, we want to do a coffee with developers, and I look for their product name, and then I get like 5 results of like, instead you can use those. And I'm like, I didn't do a shopping search here. I just searched for that one thing. Give me that first result. And that's why I got to DuckDuckGo and Ecosia as well, and they actually do that. Whereas all the others just give you things that are just like feel like listings of advertising, and it just like, that's not what I use a search for. I go to Amazon for that if I wanted to. It feels really bizarre. But yeah, this is going to be a big thing. It's like And I mean, this has been a problem with LLMs for a long time, that they sound so convincing while they're telling complete bollocks. That's the problem with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that it is getting so cheap to generate articles, and you can, generate reviews of products. I haven't really tried it, but I'm sure it's going to be very easy to just ask an AI, build a website to give me product reviews, and just like litter search results. And maybe like this is going to be an interesting thing for the future of the web, is seeing how AI influences search results and spending habits and things like that. And maybe people will retreat to different avenues. Maybe influencers will become even more popular because they're at least associated. At least you can somewhat verify that they're real, even if they're sponsored or whatever.
Yeah, but then you have AI influencers being super successful as well. So that's the other problem with that.
Wow.
Really? Generated influence. Yeah. People that don't exist. I mean, there was this lady in the States that everyone got excited about that didn't exist. That was let's not talk about that, because then we can't get that monetized anymore. But yeah, it's fascinating to see that these fake things are actually working much better. I mean, I get offers to do like, hey, here is services that you can actually take your voice and your video and then create like unpacking videos of you with products that don't exist. And you're like, wow, this is getting into a really interesting space where we can't trust anything anymore.
Yeah, I wonder if that gets to the point where the internet is this place of everyone just looks at it at entertainment rather than actual research. It's like contorted from its original design, right?
It's basically the long game of traditional media. I mean, when I was in radio in 1996 and the internet came around, I'm like, okay, that's gonna be at the end game for that. Like, nobody's gonna care about TV and these things anymore. When you have a medium that's read-write, that you can take part in, that you can actually research different sources, and you don't have like one political view of a certain TV station that actually tells you these kind of things. And yeah, nowadays it seems like we're going full circle back to like consumption. Like, to me, interactive TV was about like feedback, turning the programming into the next week it's going to change into that. But we're now just streaming and consuming things on the internet, and YouTube just basically beat Disney in like ad spend on like on like creation. And wow, it feels very strange. This was interesting. I had a podcast with another company yesterday, and we talked about this a bit, like that. It seems like Meta had an internal AI leaderboard that basically said like, the more tokens you use, the better you are as a developer. And it cost them tons of money and a few trillion tokens, like more tokens than actually books exist in the world. And then it actually vanished, so they don't even know who the winner is, kind of thing right now. But it cost them a lot of money. But it seems like lines of code reinvented in token usage.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, it's one of those wonderful. Is it Goodhart's law or someone? There's some law named after a person about as soon as you try and make a metric, it fails to become a good measure. I forget the one.
I think it was yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also Cole's law, which is like every cabbage shall be pickled.
Yes, yeah.
Oh. That's very good. I feel like it should be what's the German sauerkraut? I feel like it should be on those kinds of lines. Yeah. I mean, it does feel though like
sauerkraut.
It does feel though, like with this that there's what we're actually hearing as well is, we speak to obviously the kind of tech leaders, and we hear from them, and they're all kind of saying, and Chris, I've noticed this obviously editing a lot of Coffee with Developers episodes and things, that there's a lot of leaders that are all saying the same thing of, we don't really know what metric to measure at the moment, and the only thing we've got to go on is this token usage and the lines of code. And I think they're all revealing, and they're all saying that we don't really think this is a good measurement, but we don't have another one, so it's what we do. But if we all know that it's a pointless measurement, don't bother, because it's completely arbitrary. And from this, it sounds like a lot of tokens were used in tracking other people's tokens, and nobody's asking why they're doing it. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting what comes out of that one, or if they're just going to let it die and just like, it did never happen kind of thing. But yeah, the measuring of things, that was a big question I got in the other podcast yesterday, and I don't have an answer as well. It's just, what I said is like, wait for 3 months and see how the effectiveness of your developers has become better, how the quality of your code has improved, rather than like how much more code people created, because that's not a measure that makes sense. Like, more code doesn't mean better products. Most of the time it means more vulnerable products, easier to break products, these kind of things. So it's interesting. Another big one is M-Dash that happened. So that's basically Cloudflare released kind of, their version of a CMS for the internet. And basically it says like it's WordPress successor. Of course, WordPress had a nice press release about it as well, where they disagreed with it. They bought Astro, so I guess that was the reason. Like, basically, they bought Astro and they needed a thing for it, so they came up with an own CMS. I haven't tried for it yet, and I am tempted to actually move away from WordPress with my blog, because I had it since 2005, and it feels like I'd rather have something static generated, like a WordPress, like a Jekyll kind of thing, but I feel like, okay, I've been hacking this thing so much, and like my content is in all kind of formats. It feels like something that I need to write an agent to clean it up first. But yeah, it's interesting that they go into this space, because the CMS space I thought was like dead in terms of like trying to make money with it. But I guess Astro was needed a use or something. I don't know. What do you
really how all of these open source projects are getting corporate backing now. Like, on one hand, open source needs funding. We rely on a hell of a lot of effectively free code. So it seems good from that angle, but it reminds me of often people have this kind of take on programming languages where, if there's a programming language that's kind of corporate sponsored, that kind of mars the uptake of that language, like things like C#, Microsoft.NET and all of that. People tend to go for like independent languages, or learn independent languages more. And I'm wondering if why we're not seeing that same take for frameworks. Instead, people seem to really enjoy the fact that frameworks have this corporate backing, or maybe they're ambivalent to it, but it's something that I've observed at least.
Well, I mean, the question right now with the agentic world being upon us, I think people moving away from the Reacts to actually build more streamlined things. I mean, Mozilla just announced that they're not using React inside Firefox anymore, but you're going for web components at the moment. So that was released yesterday, that announcement. So that's going to be an interesting as well. Yeah, because Edge did that as well, and it is like half the size now. It's quite amazing how much React tried to solve problems that didn't exist or might come in the future and never came. So that's the thing. Interesting to call it M-Dash as well, because that's like, how do you detect AI talk? Because it has EM-dashes in it.
Wonderful.
But yeah, I'm going to take a play and maybe get the people involved, because Cloudflare is one of our partners, and they have got lots of interesting stuff happening. They just announced the thing as well, that they're now doing a VPN kind of thingy that's going to come soon. So yeah, that's going to be interesting as well. Now, this was a fascinating one again, where it's like somebody built a digital whip for Claude, which was like a plugin that actually had this animated whip if Claude is slow. And does things, and of course that sparked a massive outrage in terms of like imagery of it as well. Yeah, and it feels like in bad taste. It feels weird, but it's just like, yeah, the classic case of like, if you don't give engineers something to do, they come up with something.
Yeah,
and then it's tone deaf.
I mean, is it a social statement? Is it what was the intent behind it?
I don't know. I guess
X,
it's just a stupid joke. I guess it's just a stupid joke, and then it blew up on X.
Yeah.
It was mostly trolling, I think. It was, it's got a very X flavor to it. You've only got to look at some of the profile pictures, and yeah, it's lots of kind of trolling. But yeah, it does though. In the article, does a really good job of kind of digging into some of the ethical, stuff around this. Because I think, Chris, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we saw something on the news where it was sort of political leaders, and there was a big robot coming out, and then they kind of said goodbye to the robot, and it was some display of like technology. And the first thing I thought was, do they wave to it? Do they say goodbye to it, or do they just let it, walk away? Do they see it as a human? Not one of them like shook its hand or acknowledged it. It was like, okay, go away now. And in this article, they use this word clanker, I think, which is being used to talk about technology. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. We're actually starting to be faced with this now. Like, do we see them as humans? How do we treat them? Would we do the same thing to humans as we would do to them, etc.? So it's a good article.
I mean, there's a lot of this in movies, probably going back to the 2000s. I can't believe I was going to say this, but it's now an old movie, I guess. It's like Bicentennial Man was Robin Williams is a robot that eventually fought for his human rights. But I think that topic's been covered a lot by movies. But Bicentennial Man is one kind of near and dear to me because of Robin Williams and how great he is, or was, I guess.
Yeah. And the Star Trek episode Measure of a Man, where they talk about data being like owned by Starfleet or not, like that was an interesting one as well. That the I, Robot, the movie, wasn't bad either. I was really surprised by that because I loved the short story, and like it was an interesting movie in terms of like where it said like that the third law of robotics, like people protecting themselves from harm or protecting people from harm, will actually cause robots to enslave us because we're too stupid to not harm ourselves. So it's a very fascinating, interesting take on that one as well. And yeah, it was a good movie. Now, Dan, here's something for you, because Dan is really good at spreadsheets. I would say he excels at spreadsheets. And you now can have spreadsheets in the terminal, and I'm like, why? But seems to be like a thing.
Because you can, yeah. I mean, that was exactly my thought. I saw it and I thought, I know why Chris has put this in here, because he knows that I'm going to see this and I'm definitely going to use it. But yeah, why a little bit was my thought. But again, we do like it every week when we show these things where it's clear a developer has gone down a rabbit hole of just going, I wonder if you can. And then this is the result. And I love that.
This is the result. Yeah, excellent.
Exactly.
I think I could definitely use this. I spend a lot of time on the terminal. It's kind of soothing, like clicking around a UI sometimes isn't the best thing. And I think this is, I'm going to have to check this out for sure.
Love that. Yeah, it's definitely, you can see it's one of those things from the docs as well, that once you get used to it and all the shortcodes and all the shorthand, you could, I'm sure, be very quick with that. But it's whether or not you want to,
It looks very Vim. I'm guessing it's got like Vim mode.
This is my favorite terminal that you can have. Do that in a cafe and you're going to be the coolest guy there. Wow.
I think you could go better than that and actually bring one of the old like phosphor displays. Take an actual CRT, dump that on the coffee table. That would be the right choice.
Oh God, I once saw that I lived in Stockholm for a while, and there was some hipster guy coming in and actually had a battery-powered record player and basically put his records on with his big headphones while he had his coffee, and you're like, okay,
yes,
I'm out of here.
That tracks. Yeah.
This was interesting as well, that Adobe wrote to my host file, and that is really worrying. Bonkers. I don't know if you looked into that, but like that was just really bizarre.
What does this resolve to? I have to know. What does this resolve to normally? What the text? Yeah. So I'm guessing.
Let's have a look.
So it resolves to a different IP, and then they've like hacked the host file so that it resolves to this IP, so that they can tell if you have it installed. And I guess you could just add this to your host file to pretend that you have it installed.
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
but it's like hacking the registry on a Windows machine. It really feels like this should not be something that you have access to. So it's a really interesting one how that works out. But I mean, it's been a while now, 9th of April. Nobody said they're going to be tired of it, so I guess it wasn't that much of an issue, but it feels bizarre. Now, let's take a look at some tools. Vue.js I really, really like. It's actually a fuzzy search for your JavaScript thing. Like if you want to do a search on your thing, it's a fuzzy search, and I think these are really hard to do. And this I found a really nice little API to actually do it. If you want to have a search on your box, allow it to be fuzzy. It's just like searches that say like I don't find anything at all. Feels like very 90s. So this is a really cool little app to a little library to use there.
That's awesome.
I haven't looked into that much, but people have been banging on about it for quite some while. That there's a 3 billion parameter LLM on every Mac, and this one is an app that actually ties into that. So you can actually run it on device and actually use an LLM, so to say, without using anything. I mean, I use Olama also offline for that, but yeah, it seems like that it's built in already on your machine. This is a really cool thing to have, and it's like I almost said like why Apple didn't release it themselves. I know why, but like this is a really cool tool to tack into that what you have on your machine already.
I have no idea what 3 billion, like is 3 billion a good amount of parameters? I don't know what the state of the art is these days. Like I understand the concept of parameters, but is 3 billion on the low end for self-hosted?
Yeah. It's mid-range, I think.
Mid-range? Okay, interesting. What are the latest? Like, I guess Quen is the one that people can use locally. Is that like 3 or is that higher? I genuinely have no idea.
So this is 4 billion tokens. Code Llama has 7 billion tokens.
Okay.
And Quen 3 is 30 billion tokens.
Whoa.
Right. And can that even run on a mid-range machine or something, or like a MacBook? 30 billion.
Haven't tried it yet. This is an M2 machine. I'm still using the old one because I'm happy with the results as is. So, but yeah, cool to try that out. Defuddle is another thing that did the rounds, which drives me nuts that we need it. It's actually it's a library that takes a website and gives you like only the main content, much like reader mode would do, or like simple reading mode would do. And this one actually has an API, so you can basically just go to the command line and say like defuddle.blah and then you go parse the XML the HTML page, and then it gives you a markdown file of that one. If we hadn't put lots of crap on the web that nobody needs, we don't need tools like that, but it seems we do have to. So at the moment, that takes away all the horrible things in your HTML and gives you one file to then send to your LLM, so you're not running out of tokens just by reading somebody else's sites.
It might be interesting to see like an access reader or something made out of this.
Yeah. That might be something for you, Dan, as well, because I mean I can't read my handwriting, so it's pointless. But like it's you can turn your handwriting into a TDF file, so that's pretty cute.
I always like that, to be honest. I really did, and I'm being really particular here. I used to do a lot of kind of band graphics back in the day, and there was a real trend of this kind of realism. You know, things like they wanted a website to look like a notebook and things like that. So I would find quite often I would end up doing this, and you didn't want the similar font everywhere. I wanted like different variations of letters so that it didn't look like a font. So if you're like me and you're really particular, this would be perfect. I could generate different fonts and use, and it'd be completely over-engineered for what it is.
Skeuomorphism, yeah. There was a great talk at the Beyond Tellerrand where like a real font creator and also whatever the people are called that I actually know about handwriting, about say like how all the handwriting fonts that you can download are crap because they're not like a hand would move. They're not like real, like they're not putting it together. Much like when AI tries to do graffiti tags, they always look wrong. They always don't look like a real graffiti writer having done it.
Yeah.
So
no motion.
that's
the motion.
Yeah, let's go into the.
Yeah, I wondered, does this handle ligatures? Because I imagine, like, people, when you handwrite, you kind of intrinsically do ligatures, right? You would combine letters in different ways.
Well, it says it there, like letters connect naturally, FFTH, ST flow, like real writing.
Yeah. So that's like a full font then, you know, if you were going to sort of have something like that in, I think about things like Illustrator, it does it differently to Photoshop. Like if you're using Illustrator, you can define all the ligatures on every letter. So yeah, you need that in there. So that's amazing. They've done that. Variations.
This is interesting, CSS Studio by Motion, that actually allows you to edit a website live, and then it actually generates an agent that would do the code changes to your website to make that happen. So that made me remember, and you might remember that as well, Keith, there was an extension to Firefox decades ago called Aardvark, which allowed you to actually do live editing, much like the developer tools do, but then it generated a DOM script for you to use as a bookmarklet to actually take those changes. So that feels like the same thing, except now there's an agent in between burning tokens and using lots of energy.
Yeah. I mean, Firefox still has user styles, right? You can. It's a bit difficult to get it set up, but you can turn a flag on and start adding user styles to every website that you want.
And Chromium has this recorder feature that actually records all the changes that you do to a DOM and then plays it back for like automated testing kind of stuff, like test script generation and these kind of things. So yeah, it would be interesting to see that. I like the idea because I used that Aardvark thing and also the developer tools later on for prototyping when I showed it to clients and said, like, this is what your website could look like. And here's, instead of just giving them an image, I just basically wrote them 10 lines of JavaScript so that the new feature was in there. Then it took me like 3 hours to explain to them that the feature isn't done yet. It just looks like it's done. But yeah, that now we have an agent to do that. And it's an interesting kind of approach, I think. And yeah, there's a demo thing where you can try it out. So playing with that is fun as well. Cool. So that was the tips and tricks. Now we go to one thing that we have in the show called Faker News. So I'm going to show you headlines, and you're going to tell me if they are actually fake or if they're, oh my God, have I done that? Anyways, let's set that up, and then I will see in a second if I can actually show it to you. Okay. How about you talk about this one for a second, and I play with my Visual Studio Code if I actually done that already. I might have forgotten it today. So what do you think about that one, the two of you? Have a chat.
Just to jump on that, actually, because I was just thinking that, Chris, if I can get the link a second, there it is. When I saw that, my first thought was like, it feels a little bit like when you're saying, Chris, that when I was in school, I used to do sort of inspect element on people's computers and like change things, and then they would think the website was updated for real. But I do think that there's something to be said for this. Could be potentially where an agent could really work and actually serve like a real purpose, because of we're at this point now where we know we get frustrated with the idea of vibe coding and people who don't have a technical background building things. The fact is, it's only because we worry about what they don't know, right? And security issues and things like this. But for a lot of people, I think they will just be doing kind of superficial design-based things. I don't think most people are trying to create applications, because I think a lot of people know that if they don't know how to code on any level, there's only so much they can build and actually know what they're building. So what I'm getting at is, I think like for most people, this would be great. Just being able to design visually, change things, not get into the technicals, because color pickers rather than hex codes, like they don't need to ever really get into the technicals. But then the agent would, I assume, be comparing like diffs or something. I don't know how it kind of knows how you can control it. Like, what's the difference here between them just saying, here's my website, and natural language, change this, please.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can supply screenshots to some of these AI tools, and it can sort of reason about that. But yeah, I think kind of like the meta point there is like this idea of personalization, I guess. I have a friend who recently had a baby, and they like vibe coded a baby tracker app thing. Not to track their baby's location, but like for feeds and all of this kind of stuff. And I think it's really interesting that you can build these kind of personal, like the use of one or maybe a couple of people, using an AI agent just to say, can I have this kind of thing? Like, this is a need I have. I want this addressed, and I don't need to turn it into a business or anything. I just want some kind of, duct tape and chewing gum stuck together app that just about functions for what I need, and I don't really care about data security or like customers or anything like that. I think that is a really interesting niche that maybe could be explored more. And yeah, maybe this kind of CSS Studio is like an interesting way to look at that as well.
Like the everyday engineer,
cool. Yeah.
Over to you, Chris.
All right, I actually just realized I shared my assembly code in my VS Code, so I'm writing things on Commodore 64 at the moment. So it's interesting. But yeah, we got the live thing going, so let's play Fake or News.
Wonderful.
All right, so let's get started. After 16 years at $8 billion spendage, the military's new GPS software still doesn't work.
Surely that can't be real. What do you think, Keith?
I mean, that feels real, because you could replace a few of those words and it would just be the same kind of thing, right? Like it feels like every. Yeah, is that real?
You're right. Yeah,
it is
right.
news. It's real.
Yeah.
Wow.
Government's good at.
Meta's hitherto defunct metaverse currency becomes more valuable than Bitcoin overnight.
No way.
Yeah, I'm going to say that one's fake.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I would like it to be real, but no, yeah.
Another Starlink satellite has inexplicably exploded.
This is almost invariably true at this point, right? Even if the headline is fake, it's got to be real.
It's too true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney banned from Reddit after promoting himself in Paul McCartney subreddit.
No way. It's anonymous.
I could see this happening. I'll go true.
It's news.
No way.
Oh, excellent.
Leaked internal memo shows Microsoft investigating cognitive fatigue in users of Copilot integrated IDEs.
I think I actually read a headline like this recently, so I think maybe I'll say real on this one.
Yeah, I think it sounds real.
It's fake.
Oh, interesting.
Massive AI chat app leaked billions of users' private conversations.
Yeah,
I mean, again, this is one of those things that's just invariant at this point. It must be true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which one is the question?
Ancient Telnet bug happily hands out root to attackers.
Do people even use Telnet now? I'm going to say fake.
Yeah. It could go under the radar. I don't think it's real.
It's
wow. Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things that are actually in there, and of course, only attackers will use it after a while. Much like the FTP was removed from Firefox a long time ago. Before that, we had FTP client in there as well. Tesla software update introduces privacy blur for dashcam footage to comply with new EU regulations.
This is tough. I could definitely see it being real because of the EU regulations. I could also, what would it do? I'm going to say fake.
Oh, okay.
It's fake.
Oh.
Correct.
Elderly lottery winner uses jackpot to buy £288 million drug empire, making pills from his cottage.
I mean, this is what I want to be when I grow up, so real?
Yeah, it's got to be real.
It is actually real, yeah. It's like
excellent. Perfection.
Breaking Berkshire or something, I don't know. New study finds large language models struggle with semantic drift in long-term technical documentation.
I struggle with semantic drift at the headline itself.
Yeah, I think that's true, though. Over time, they do, don't they? They drift.
It's fake.
Okay. Yeah, never trust me.
And that was fake or news this time. So yeah, it's interesting. The Paul McCartney thing had me in stitches. That's just basically like, it's when real celebrities post on social media and people tell them it's fake. That must be really, really frustrating.
You'd think he's famous enough, right? Why does he need to promote himself? Especially in a subreddit dedicated to him, but
yeah, that's true. Yes, you're at the fan club, the literal online fan club, and you're saying, "Hi guys, have you heard of me?" Wow.
Yeah, gonna do some like maybe go into the
just elderly people, technology. You never know. Like maybe it's just like I don't know, weird.
Yeah.
Cool. Now that was fake on news, but you built something that went around for quite a while as well, called CSS or BS. So
I did.
how is that going? Like how much traffic do you get from that one? And I'm impressed that you did like a leaderboard and everything and stats and like look at this stuff. This is mental.
Yeah. This is so we're at about 40,000 plays, and I think the scoreboard's considerably smaller because I think people get too embarrassed at their score to really submit a score. But yeah, it was a lot of fun building, and I mostly built it because I'm writing a CSS parser called CSS Kit, and I realized just how many properties there are, and every week it feels like there are new properties that come in, and so it's a bit of an endless journey to just try and implement all of these properties. So I thought I'd challenge others to see just how who can get the right ones, and yeah, I could probably find you the cheat sheet because I have the full stats and everything behind a hidden URL.
What I liked about this is last time we had you on the show, Keith, I remember you were saying about Tailwind having poisoned people's minds, and I'll be honest, most of the ones I was getting wrong were ones where I was going, is that Tailwind? What do they have? And kind of doubting myself. And yeah, so you're right. And it does actually prove a good point, though, that you kind of can very easily kind of forget the core CSS properties and confuse them with Tailwind. And yeah.
Yes, yeah. But this is a kind of to the earlier conversation. I think CSS is kind of becoming all subsuming, right? There's like you were talking about LaTeX and print, and there's like the CSS paged media spec. I think one of the properties on this that's real that's caught me off whilst I was playing it is footnote policy. I have no idea what it does, but it's a real property. There's a lot of those which are just like CSS just does so much. So how can I send this to you? I'll send you this one and we can all I'll send it. So this is the kind of internal cheat sheet for the whole game that kind of pulls in all of the data and has all the answers. So obviously I don't share it with many, but yeah,
let me see if I can get it in here.
So you actually see the ones that people got correct the most as well. Seeing
the
background. Yeah, you'd think, okay, anyone's getting that one wrong. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I collected a list of effectively 400 properties where half of them are fake, sort of made up, that like toe close to the line, and obviously half of them are real. And then it was just a case of I looked at the popularity of all of these properties because there's loads of data about like how often they're used and things. And kind of created these difficulty tiers. And then I thought it would be really interesting to just gather some stats on like who's getting it right and whatnot. And so then I built this secondary page, but as I say, this is behind a URL that kind of rotates frequently, so no one can really see it. But this is the answer sheet if you wanted to get a perfect score.
Wow.
Yeah, so this was quite a lot of work. It took a month or two to build. But I like that you have a tier.
I like that you have a tier of cursed.
Yeah.
Well, I had all the way to hard, and then the cursed ones are a bunch of the forbidden ones. There's a tier above cursed, which is forbidden, because these are all draft specs, and it felt too unfair to put them interspersed. So they're all in their own difficulty tier, which is like if you and the whole point of the game is to try, like the game is designed so that to try and not give you a perfect score, it tries to give you about 15 correct. And so every time you get 2 right, it goes up a tier, and then that difficulty curve is there, so that it's really, really difficult to get a perfect score, even though some have.
Oh, wow, that's clever. That actually, and I think the interesting thing is also the way it actually blossoms out when you actually start getting into CSS. I mean, you got like border radius, but then you can go like border radius for the whole border thing, or you can border top right radius, border top left radius. So everything on short term also has like really, really long terms, and then with the anchor positioning, it become like a whole sentence sometimes, and it's just pretty amazing how complex I mean, writing a parser for CSS must be an absolute nightmare by now, because there's so many options to do that. I always found it really annoying that like the shortcuts of CSS don't tell you actually what the different bits are. So you just read the shortcut, but by what property you used, it actually realizes what CSS it should apply. So instead of having a JSON object saying like, this is width, this is that, this is that, the order can be in any way that you want to. And when it realizes it's a width property, that's probably the width, and that's the thing. And so there's a lot of magical parsing going on, which of course, I guess when you are a traditional developer, you hate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's stuff that tricks, even the all of the popular minifiers and tools out today. For example, background is a shorthand property for things like background position and all of this. But it resets, like a shorthand resets all of the longhand properties. But some of these shorthands don't have. You cannot express some of the longhands in the shorthand. So background is one of those. I think it's background image, or one of the longhand properties you can't express in the shorthand. And minifiers will compress all of these into the shorthand values, but they'll break websites because of this kind of disparity, I guess. So yeah, this is like kind of a project of mine, I guess. I'm kind of diving into with all of this, but yeah.
Same with animation. There's a lot of stuff that you can override if you just do an animation shortcut after defining other things, especially when you have something where you can allow people to create the animations. That's why people go for GSAP instead of CSS animations, because they're like, why is it not applying it? And developer tools, both in Firefox and in Chromium, actually show you now when things are not applied, and I love that. Like basically when it's grayed out in the CSS, then it actually says to like, okay, this width is not there anymore because you had a flex before that. These kind of things, it's actually much easier to debug. The other bit you did was that J and D. That was quite fun as well. Which I found an interesting one, which basically is like. What is that, by the way? Like every time I looked at it, like I was like, is my browser not rendering this correctly? Is this a UTF-8 thing, or what is that? Delta E OK.
Yes, the delta E OK is so delta E is the measure of a color difference, and that's in the OK lab space rather than the lab space. OK is supposed to be a perceptually uniform color space. But yeah, that's how you write the notation, and this was the whole thing. I wrote like a complimentary post with this because I was exploring how the perceptual difference between colors if you start rounding the values. So rather than 0.0003, maybe 0.001 or something. What is the perceptual difference of that? And actually, the game started because I kind of did a bunch of research and figured out the right rounding. And then I showed a friend who said, I think I can see the difference. And so I said, prove it. And so I built this game out just to see what kind of scores people get. And it's been really fun. And then I did a hard mode. So if you scroll to the bottom here, there's a hard mode, which is slightly different because it's a 9 by 3 by 3 grid of 9 tiles. And you can see it starts easy and ramps up again. But yeah, I'm really interested in this idea of difficulty curves as well in these games, because I think it's a fascinating topic where I think you can have a game that kind of trains itself on you and on your skill set and gets more difficult. Games that are too easy to win are just they feel sometimes like a hollow experience. But if you can have a game that matches you, that parries your difficulty or your skill set, I think that's really interesting.
It would be fun to actually do a color deficit simulation on it as well, like red-green blindness and these kind of things, and then see the differences there. Like
I got a ton of responses from colorblind folks and from tetrachromats, and all of these people, and a lot of people said that they had difficulty with the red hues, and a lot of said blue. And I think there's some kind of like chromosomal difference, I guess, there, because as I understand it, cones and rods are different in different if you have different chromosomes or whatever.
So that's another one where you actually allowed me to change the color, and then you had to actually drag it to actually find the color that's matching it. And this one's not much time to do it. Like,
this one's more. This was kind of the initial prototype I had, and I realized this is more of a reaction game, or like trying to figure out how the UI or the UX is. So people spend a lot of time just figuring out how to play the game before they actually get good at it. But one of my friends is very, very good at this. I am terrible at all of these, by the way. My color perception is not great.
That's what I wondered when you were saying that. Because I used to be a teacher, and I used to do some of these kind of games with students, in terms of color acuity and things. And it was more about kind of in an artistic background, understanding, how good they are at recognizing colors, but also, like you're saying, perception issues and things. And I'd had one student who'd used a lot of red in their work for several years, and I didn't actually know why. It was kind of black and white with red, like Sin City. And it was because it's essentially the only color he could really see strongly. So when he did these kinds of games, he would get the worst score in the group, but actually probably was the most accomplished kind of filmmaker in the entire room. And there was another student who was very struggled a lot with kind of neurodivergence, and he had quite complicated issues, was absolutely amazing at any kind of color acuity. It was instinctive. In a second, he could find the color, move on. So when you're saying about the challenge, those games were never difficult for him because it was like a talent or an instinct. So how much you can train and things. That's really interesting.
Yeah, there's people who is it synesthesia, which is the kind of attribute of like associating sounds to colors, and a lot of those people end up sort of in a musical career because they have this natural acuity to it, I guess.
What's the big one that did the like Get Lucky song? He said he has it. So
Pharrell Williams.
And that was also quite fun. There's a crossword that only has CSS bits in it, and oh my god, that's almost impossible to solve. And the interesting bit was like the how do you make an input box that goes downwards, and it doesn't quite do it the way it does right now, but it's interesting to actually what's going on there. So that's always quite fun as well. But I love that you're building these little things, and then instead of just like building a thing and throwing it out like I do on like Beta and things like that, you just basically put like a whole like analysis behind it, and you have like your background finding it, and there's different specs for it, and you give out the data and stuff. So this is fun to actually see that, and I think it's just fascinating to get brain cleanse while you're trying to write the CSS engine to actually see how other people trip up.
Definitely. And I mean, I'm fascinated with games. I'm trying to do a project this year where I just write a different game every month. So I guess watch this space. I'll have a few more out, or at least one more out next month. I've got about 5 different games that I'm working on at the moment, which are just for fun. But they seem to be catching on, which is good.
So you're competing with Neil.fun, then basically he's the other one that releases a new thing every week, it seems like,
great, cool. I'll have to check that out. Get some ideas maybe.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's the end of the hour. We managed to get through all of it, so I'm very excited about that. We got good timekeeping, although I messed up by not setting up the Fake on News in time. So any last words you have for the people out there? What you want to do, like use all CSS so you have to write a good engine, or what do you have as a message to the world out there in the last 30 seconds?
Wow. Have fun, do silly things, like make games, make quirky stuff. The web is still ours if we want it. That would be my message, I think.
How about you, Dan?
I couldn't say it better than that, really, but I would just say, we usually share something like go and make things for fun and kind of do things because you enjoy them. And so I'd say where better place to start than keithcirkel.co.uk, and check out the new games on there. And then maybe you'll get inspired to make something and share it with us. So appreciate you coming on, Keith.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. What did Yoda say the first time he saw himself in 4K?
HDUR?
HDMI.
HDMI, of course. Wonderful. Excellent.
No, that was WeAreDevelopers Live for today. And with that, I leave you to your wonderful lives. Be nice to each other, build random things, and actually take React out of everything because the web is good enough.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you around.
Bye-bye.